The birthday candles were still burning when Ethan Caldwell looked at his wife and said the sentence that shattered the entire room. "Do not cut that cake, Claire. You are not her mother." For one frozen second, nobody moved. The crystal chandelier above the dining table glowed like captured sunlight, spilling gold across white roses, polished silverware, and a 5-tier vanilla strawberry cake Claire had spent all afternoon making with her own hands. Outside the tall windows of the Caldwell mansion, the Connecticut evening was soft and blue, the kind of perfect summer night rich families paid planners thousands of dollars to create. But inside that room the air had turned sharp enough to cut. Claire Bennett Caldwell stood beside the cake with the knife still in her hand, her fingers trembling so slightly that only Lily noticed. Lily, 5 years old today, sat at the center of the long table in a pale pink dress, her curls pinned back with a ribbon, her little cheeks glowing from excitement that had disappeared all at once. A paper crown leaned crookedly on her head. In front of her, 5 tiny flames danced, waiting for a wish she had not made yet. Just moments earlier, she had been bouncing in her chair, whispering that Mommy Claire's cake always tasted like home. Now her blue eyes moved from Ethan to Claire, confused, scared, searching for the safe place every child expects to find in a mother's face. Around them, the Caldwell family sat in stunned silence. Men in tailored suits lowered their wine glasses. Women wearing pearls and careful smiles stopped breathing behind their napkins. At the far end of the table, Vanessa Caldwell, Ethan's sister-in-law, did not look surprised. She only tilted her chin, as if the evening had finally reached the exact moment she had been waiting for. Claire felt every stare land on her skin, but she did not look at any of them. She looked only at Lily. Because the child had not asked for money, status, a last name, or a place inside one of America's wealthiest families. Lily had asked for bedtime stories when the house felt too big. She had asked for star-shaped sandwiches when she was afraid to go to school. She had asked Claire to check under the bed for monsters, to braid her hair before ballet class, to stay beside her when thunder rolled across the sky. And every time Claire had stayed, Ethan pushed back his chair, the sound scraping against the marble floor. His face was pale, but his voice stayed cold, controlled, almost businesslike, the voice that had made him a billionaire before 40. "This ends tonight," he said. "No more pretending. No more secrets. No more letting my daughter believe a lie." Claire's throat tightened. "My daughter. Not our daughter. Not Lily. My daughter." The words hit harder than the accusation itself. Lily slid down from her chair, her small shoes tapping against the floor as she ran to Claire and wrapped both arms around her waist. "She is my mommy," Lily whispered. But in that silent room everyone heard it. Claire's eyes filled, yet she forced a smile for the child clinging to her dress. She set the cake knife down carefully, as if one wrong movement might break whatever remained of Lily's birthday. Then she looked at Ethan, the man who had once told her she brought warmth back into his house, the man who had kissed Lily's forehead and thanked Claire for saving them both. Tonight, he looked at her like a stranger standing too close to his fortune. "Ethan," Claire said softly, "please do not do this in front of her." But Vanessa leaned forward before he could answer, her diamond bracelet flashing under the chandelier. "Maybe the child deserves to know the truth on her birthday," she said, "before she grows up calling the wrong woman her mother." Lily's grip tightened. Claire felt the little girl shaking against her. And somewhere deep inside the ache, beneath the humiliation, beneath the fear, something old and buried stirred. A memory of a hospital room. A nurse who would not meet her eyes. A baby bracelet cut in half. A truth Claire had carried like a wound for 5 years without understanding why it never healed. She looked toward the small gift table near the wall, where a worn wooden box sat beneath pink tissue paper and ribbon. Inside were Lily's drawings, birthday cards, tiny treasures no one in that mansion had ever cared to notice. And hidden beneath them all was the one thing Claire had never been able to throw away. Ethan thought he was about to expose her. Vanessa thought she had one. But before the candles burned out, everyone at that table was going to learn that the biggest lie in the Caldwell family had never belonged to Claire. 3 years earlier, Claire Bennett had entered the Caldwell mansion through the side door, because people like her were not expected to use the front one. She was 26 then, wearing a navy cardigan, plain flats, and carrying a canvas tote filled with picture books, crayons, and a sandwich she had forgotten to eat during her shift at the preschool. The housekeeper had warned her before opening the nursery wing. "Miss Lily does not talk much," the woman whispered. "Not since everything happened." Claire had nodded, but nothing could have prepared her for the quiet inside that room. It was not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that sits heavy on the walls. Toys lined the shelves without fingerprints. A dollhouse stood perfect and untouched. In the corner, beneath a grand piano too large for a child, a little girl sat with her knees pulled to her chest, staring at the floor as if the world had asked too much of her too soon. Lily was 2 years old, tiny in a white dress, with one sock missing and her curls falling over her eyes. Claire did not rush toward her. She did not use the bright, fake voice adults often use when they are afraid of silence. She simply sat down on the carpet a few feet away, opened her tote, and placed half of her sandwich on a napkin between them. Peanut butter and strawberry jelly, cut into a crooked star because Claire had made it for one of her students that morning and could not bring herself to throw it away. Lily did not move for almost 10 minutes. Claire waited. Outside the nursery windows, a landscaper pushed a mower across 2 acres of perfect green lawn. Somewhere downstairs, glass clinked, phones rang, footsteps passed, but no one came in. Finally, Lily looked at the sandwich, then at Claire, then at the sandwich again. Claire smiled softly. "Stars are allowed to be crooked," she said. "That is how you know they are real." Lily reached out with one small hand and took a corner. She did not say thank you. She did not smile. But she ate. That was the first beginning. Not dramatic. Not magical. Just a hungry child, a patient woman, and a piece of bread shaped like something gentle. Ethan Caldwell watched from the hallway longer than he meant to. At 35, he already owned buildings in New York, Boston, and Miami. He could read contracts faster than most attorneys, silence a boardroom with one glance, and turn a failing property into 8 figures before lunch. But he did not know how to make his little girl look up. He had hired specialists, consultants, private teachers, women with degrees and polished resumes. They all tried too hard. They all left within weeks. Claire did not try to impress anyone. She came back the next day with a paperback about a rabbit who lost his way home. The day after that, she brought washable markers. By the end of the first month, Lily let Claire brush her hair. By the end of the third, she whispered her first full sentence in a year. "Can Claire stay until I fall asleep?" Ethan had stood outside the door that night, one hand resting against the frame, listening as Claire sang an old lullaby in a voice barely above a breath. He remembered thinking the mansion sounded different with her in it. Less like stone. More like a home. He did not fall in love with Claire all at once. It happened in small, quiet betrayals of his own defenses. He noticed how she warmed Lily's milk for exactly 20 seconds because Lily hated it too hot. He noticed how she kept extra hair ties in her pocket. He noticed how she never asked about the Caldwell money, never lingered near the expensive rooms, never changed her tone when she spoke to him. To Claire, he was not a billionaire. He was a tired father who did not know how to reach his child. And somehow that made him feel seen in a way no praise ever had. One rainy October evening, Lily fell asleep with her head in Claire's lap, still clutching a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures under a yellow roof. Ethan looked at the picture and asked, almost afraid of the answer, "Who is that?" Claire touched the smallest figure. Lily said, "This is her." Then the taller one. "This is you." Ethan nodded toward the third figure in the blue dress. "And that?" Claire's face softened. She said, "That is me." For a long moment, Ethan could not speak. The child who had hidden under a piano had drawn a family. A year later, he asked Claire to marry him in the garden behind the mansion, not with cameras, not with a press release, but beside the stone fountain where Lily had scattered rose petals from a basket far too big for her hands. Claire had said yes because she believed love could grow where grief had once lived. She believed Ethan meant it when he whispered, "You saved us." And for a while maybe he did. But love built inside a mansion full of secrets is like a candle near an open window. It can glow beautifully for a time, until someone decides to let the cold air in. After the wedding, Claire did not become the woman the Caldwell family expected her to be. She did not spend afternoons choosing jewelry from private showrooms. She did not invite photographers to capture her new life. She did not redecorate the mansion to prove she belonged there. Instead, she turned one unused breakfast room into Lily's art corner, filled a lower kitchen drawer with plastic cups and animal crackers, and asked the staff to stop standing every time she walked in. That small request offended Vanessa more than any insult could have. Vanessa Caldwell had been part of the family long before Claire arrived. She was the widow of Ethan's older brother, Julian, and she carried herself like a woman who had earned every inch of the marble floor beneath her heels. Her clothes were always cream, black, or silver. Her smile was always soft enough to seem polite and sharp enough to leave a mark. At family dinners, she called Claire sweetheart, in a tone that made the word feel smaller each time. Claire tried not to take it personally. She told herself grief did strange things to people. Vanessa had lost a husband. Ethan had lost a brother. Lily had lost the only world she had known before she was old enough to name it. Maybe Claire thought everyone in that house was simply learning how to breathe around old pain. But Vanessa was not grieving Claire's presence. She was studying it. She noticed how Lily ran past relatives to reach Claire first. She noticed how Ethan's voice changed when Claire entered a room, how the coldness around his eyes softened before he caught himself. She noticed the way staff members began asking Claire what Lily liked, what Lily needed, what Lily feared. Influence did not always arrive with a title. Sometimes it arrived with bedtime stories and warm milk. And Vanessa understood influence better than anyone. For years, she had managed the emotional weather of the Caldwell family. She knew which aunt needed flattery, which board member liked private reassurance, which old scandal could be mentioned and which one had to remain buried. Claire was different. Claire did not play the game because Claire did not know there was one. That made her dangerous. The first time Vanessa saw the wooden box, it was sitting on a shelf in Lily's art room beside a jar of dull crayons. It was not expensive, just a small maple keepsake box with a loose brass latch, the kind sold at craft fairs for $20. Lily had painted tiny yellow stars on the lid with Claire's help. Vanessa watched from the doorway as Claire opened it and placed another drawing inside. "What is that?" Vanessa asked. Claire looked up surprised then smiled. "Lily's treasures. Drawings, birthday cards, little things she wants to keep." Vanessa stepped closer. "How sentimental." Lily, sitting at the table with glue on her fingers, said proudly, "It is our mommy box." The words landed in the room like a match dropped near dry paper. Claire's smile trembled, but she brushed Lily's curls back and said nothing. Vanessa smiled too, but her eyes had gone still. That evening, she asked one of the housekeepers whether Claire kept personal documents in the art room. The woman said she did not know. A week later, Vanessa appeared at the doorway again when Claire was not there. She did not open the box. Not yet. She only ran one finger over the painted stars and looked toward the hallway, where Lily's laughter echoed from the kitchen. The sound seemed to irritate her more than silence ever had. By then, Claire had begun to feel the shape of Vanessa's dislike, though she could not understand the reason. It was in the way Vanessa corrected Lily when she said, "Mommy Claire," in front of guests. It was in the way she introduced Claire at charity luncheons as Ethan's new wife, but never as Lily's mother. It was in the family photo she arranged so Claire stood half a step behind Ethan, just far enough to look temporary. Ethan noticed some of it but not enough. Or maybe he noticed and chose peace over truth, the way powerful men sometimes do when a problem has not yet reached their own doorstep. Claire tried to talk to him once after a dinner where Vanessa had praised Lily's real mother, for 10 minutes while Lily stared at her untouched plate. Ethan loosened his tie and sighed. "Vanessa can be difficult," he said, "but she has been through a lot." Claire folded Lily's sweater over the back of a chair. "So has Lily." Ethan looked at her then, and for a moment the man from the garden came back, the man who had believed her love was enough. "I know," he said quietly, "and I know what you are to her." Claire wanted to ask if he truly did. Instead, she let herself believe him, because believing him was easier than admitting the walls of the mansion were beginning to whisper again. And somewhere behind those walls, Vanessa was already searching for the one secret that could turn love into evidence, a mother into a suspect, and a child's birthday into the perfect stage for betrayal. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks before Lily's birthday. While rain moved softly across the mansion windows and Claire was helping Lily practice writing the number 5. Lily sat at the kitchen island with her tongue pressed against her cheek, gripping a purple marker as if it were a serious tool. It looks like a snake, she said, frowning at the crooked number on the paper. Claire leaned beside her and smiled. A very talented snake. Lily giggled, and for a moment the kitchen felt warm enough to make the rest of the house disappear. Ethan was in Boston that day, closing a hotel acquisition, and Vanessa used his absence the way other people used a key. She walked into his private study just after lunch, carrying a flat black folder under one arm. She placed it on his desk without opening it and waited until he returned that evening, tired, damp from the rain, and already reaching for his phone. "You need to see this before you plan any more of that child's future," she said. Ethan looked up slowly. "Lily has a name, Vanessa. And Claire has a secret." That stopped him. Vanessa did not raise her voice. She never needed to. She opened the folder and spread the papers across the desk with careful fingers. There were copies of medical records, a page that looked like an adoption inquiry, a signed statement from a private investigator, a lab report with Ethan's name highlighted in yellow, and Claire's name underlined in red. The paper looked official, clean, undeniable. That was what made it so dangerous. Ethan read the first page, then the second. His expression did not change, but the muscle in his jaw tightened. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Vanessa stepped back, letting the documents breathe between them. "From someone who still cares about this family before your wife rewrites it." Ethan's eyes lifted. "Be careful." "I have been careful for years," Vanessa said. "Careful while a preschool teacher with no background, no connections, and no real claim to Lily walked into this house and became the center of it. Careful while you let grief make decisions for you. Careful while she collected drawings, built routines, turned herself into the only person Lily trusts." Ethan looked toward the study door, as if he could hear Claire's laugh from the kitchen even through 2 halls of marble and wood. Vanessa softened her voice, and that was worse. "Ask yourself why Claire keeps that little wooden box locked away. Ask yourself why she never talks about the child she lost. Ask yourself why she became attached to Lily so quickly." The words found old bruises Ethan had never shown anyone. He had spent his life surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Investors wanted access. Relatives wanted loyalty. Reporters wanted weakness. Even love in his world often arrived with fine print. Claire had seemed different. That was the foundation he had built his second chance on. But a foundation can crack the moment doubt gets underneath it. That night, Ethan stood outside Lily's art room after everyone had gone upstairs. The maple box sat on the shelf, painted with tiny yellow stars. He did not touch it. He told himself that meant he still trusted Claire. But he stayed there for almost 10 minutes, staring at it like it might open by itself and confess. Over the next few days, something shifted in him by inches. He asked Claire questions that sounded casual but landed too precisely. "Did you ever request hospital records after your miscarriage? Did you know anyone connected to Caldwell Memorial before you came here? Why do you keep old paperwork in Lily's room?" Each question made Claire go still. Not because she was hiding what Vanessa claimed, but because grief has its own locked doors, and Ethan had started knocking on all of them without warning. Claire had lost a baby 5 years earlier. At least that was what she had been told. She had gone into labor too early, woken in a hospital bed, and been handed an explanation instead of a child. Her mother, who had been sick then, kept one broken hospital bracelet in an envelope and told Claire to save it, though she never explained why before she passed away. Claire had tried for years not to live inside that question. Then Lily came into her life and the ache changed shape. It did not disappear. It became love with nowhere safe to put the past. Ethan did not know how much his suspicion hurt because he never called it suspicion. He called it protecting Lily. He called it being cautious. He called it making sure no one used his daughter as a doorway into the Caldwell name. Vanessa watched all of it with patient satisfaction. She did not need Ethan to hate Claire overnight. She only needed him to doubt her at the right time, in the right room in front of the right witnesses. And as Lily's 5th birthday invitations went out on thick cream paper, with gold lettering and pink ribbons chosen by Claire, Vanessa made one final phone call from the back seat of her town car. "Have the rest of the documents ready," she said quietly. "By the birthday dinner. He will believe anything I put in his hands." By the beginning of Lily's birthday week, Claire could feel Ethan slipping away from her. Not loudly, not all at once, but in quiet withdrawals that hurt more because they looked almost polite. He still kissed Lily goodnight. He still asked the staff about breakfast schedules and school pickups. He still stood beside Claire when guests visited, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back for appearance. But the warmth had gone out of the touch. At night, he stayed longer in his study, the black folder locked in the bottom drawer of his desk. In the mornings, he watched Claire with careful eyes, as if every ordinary thing she did had become part of a case he was building. Claire noticed when he stopped letting her sign Lily's school forms without reviewing them first. She noticed when he asked the nanny to copy him on every medical appointment. She noticed when he told the family attorney to update guardianship language, and then ended the call the second she stepped into the room. None of it was dramatic enough to accuse him of cruelty, but all of it was sharp enough to leave marks. Lily noticed too, in the way children always notice what adults think they have hidden. One evening while Claire was folding pink napkins for the party, Lily climbed onto the chair beside her and whispered, "Is Daddy mad at us?" Claire's hands stopped. The linen napkin in her lap was embroidered with a tiny gold letter C. One of Vanessa's formal touches. Claire hated how cold it looked. She turned to Lily and tucked a loose curl behind her ear. "Daddy has grown-up worries," she said carefully. "That does not mean he is mad at you." Lily looked down at her hands. "But is he mad at you?" Claire swallowed the truth before it reached her face. Sometimes grown-ups forget how to talk when their hearts are scared. Lily thought about that, then slid a crayon drawing across the table. It showed 3 people holding hands beside a lopsided birthday cake. Above them, in uneven letters, Lily had written "Mommy, Daddy, me." Claire smiled, but her eyes burned. She placed the drawing inside the wooden box that night, beneath the others, beneath a movie ticket from the first time she had taken Lily to see a cartoon in town, beneath a pressed daisy Lily had picked from the garden, beneath a birthday card with fingerprints in pink paint. At the very bottom was the envelope from Claire's mother, soft at the edges from years of being touched and put away again. Inside was the broken hospital bracelet. "Baby Bennett." The letters were faded, but Claire had memorized every curve. She had never shown it to Ethan. Not because she wanted to deceive him, but because there are some losses that feel too fragile to place in another person's hands. 5 years earlier, after the hospital told her the baby was gone, Claire had stopped asking questions because everyone around her spoke with such certainty. The doctor said complications. The nurse said there was nothing more to do. Her mother said, "Rest, sweetheart, rest." And then her mother grew sicker, bills piled up, and grief became something Claire carried quietly while life kept demanding rent, work, groceries, and clean clothes. When Lily entered her world, Claire did not think the child replaced what she had lost. No child could do that. But Lily reached a part of her heart that had been locked in the dark for too long. Loving Lily had never felt like pretending. It felt like remembering something her soul knew before her mind did. 2 days before the party, Claire found a suitcase in the guest room closet and placed it on the bed. She folded 3 sweaters, 2 pairs of jeans, her old preschool badge, and the small framed photo of her mother. She did it slowly without crying, because Lily was downstairs choosing sprinkles for the cake. Claire had made her decision after hearing Ethan through the study door. His voice low and controlled as he spoke to his attorney. "After the birthday dinner, I want temporary restrictions in place. Until I know exactly what Claire has done." The words had hollowed her out. Not because he doubted paperwork. Because he doubted years of bedtime prayers, scraped knee kisses, fever checks, lunchbox notes, and the 1,000 invisible acts that had made Lily believe she was safe. Claire did not know where she would go. Maybe to a small rental near town. Maybe back to the preschool if they had an opening. She only knew she would not stay in a house where love had to defend itself against a file folder. But she would not ruin Lily's birthday. So on the morning of the party, Claire woke before sunrise, tied her hair back, and began baking the vanilla strawberry cake from scratch. Flour dusted her sleeves. Butter softened on the counter. The kitchen smelled like sugar, berries, and warm hope. Lily came in wearing pajamas with little moons on them and climbed onto a stool. "Mommy, why are you making it yourself when Daddy can buy a giant cake?" Claire looked at the batter turning smooth beneath the mixer. "Because some things should be made by hand." Lily nodded seriously. "Because hands have love in them." Claire smiled then. a real smile that almost broke her. Yes, sweetheart. Exactly. By late afternoon, the cake stood finished, imperfect and beautiful, with 5 pink candles waiting at the top and the words "Happy Birthday, my brave little star" written in white frosting. Claire looked at it and made herself a silent promise. No matter what Ethan believed, no matter what Vanessa planned, Lily would remember this birthday beginning with love. She did not yet know that before the night ended, the same cake would stand between a lie that had ruled the Caldwell family for years and a truth that had been waiting 5 miles away in an old hospital archive. By 6 o'clock, the Caldwell dining room looked like something from a magazine, beautiful in the way only money can make a room beautiful without making it feel alive. White roses climbed from crystal vases. Gold-rimmed plates rested on folded napkins. Long candles burned along the center of the table, their flames reflected in the dark windows beyond the terrace. The summer sky outside had turned lavender, and beyond the lawn, the first fireflies blinked above the hedges like tiny sparks of mercy. Claire stood near the sideboard, smoothing the skirt of her pale blue dress, the one Lily had chosen because she said it made Claire look like a princess from a storybook. Her suitcase was still upstairs in the guest room closet, half hidden behind a row of winter coats. Every few minutes, Claire felt its weight in her mind, a quiet ending waiting behind a closed door. Lily did not know. She ran from guest to guest with a pink ribbon in her hair, proudly showing everyone the bracelet Claire had made from plastic beads that morning. "Mommy made it," she told one of Ethan's cousins. "See, it says Brave Star." The cousin smiled politely, but Vanessa, standing near the fireplace with a glass of sparkling water, heard every word. Her mouth curved. Not a smile. A decision. Ethan entered the dining room just after the first guests were seated. He wore a charcoal suit, his hair still damp from the shower, his expression controlled in a way Claire had learned to fear. He looked at Lily first, and for one brief second, love crossed his face so clearly that Claire's heart reached toward it out of habit. Then his eyes moved to her. The warmth vanished behind something guarded. "The cake looks nice," he said. Claire nodded. She wanted vanilla strawberry. I know what she wanted. The words were not loud, but they carried an edge. Claire lowered her gaze before Lily could notice. Dinner began with polite conversation, the kind that floats over pain without touching it. People discussed summer homes in Nantucket, a charity auction in Manhattan, a school board fundraiser, a new restaurant in Greenwich where a salad cost more than Claire used to spend on groceries for 3 days. Lily sat between Ethan and Claire, swinging her feet under the table, too excited to eat much. Every few minutes she leaned into Claire to whisper something important, like how the potatoes looked like clouds or how Uncle Martin's laugh sounded like a goose. Claire smiled each time, kissed the top of her head once, and tried to memorize the feeling. Across the table Vanessa waited. She waited through the salad, through the roast chicken Ethan had barely touched, through the toast from Ethan's aunt about family legacy, Caldwell's strength, and children carrying names forward. Then when the plates were cleared and the staff brought in Claire's cake, Vanessa rose smoothly, lifting her glass. "Before Lily makes her wish," she said, "I think we should honor the woman who first brought her into this family." The room shifted. Claire's hand tightened around the back of Lily's chair. Ethan looked down at his plate. Lily blinked. "Mommy, Claire brought me," she said. A few guests gave awkward little laughs, hoping the moment would soften. Vanessa only tilted her head. "Of course, sweetheart. Claire has been very devoted." That word, devoted, sounded almost kind until Vanessa continued. "But devotion is not the same as truth." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. Ethan set his water glass down. "Vanessa." It should have been a warning. Instead it came out tired. Vanessa looked at him with practiced concern. "You asked for transparency. I am only saying what everyone in this family has been afraid to say. Children deserve honesty, especially on days meant to celebrate who they are." Lily's smile disappeared. She looked from Vanessa to Ethan, then up at Claire. "Mommy." Claire knelt beside her chair immediately, blocking as much of the room as she could with her body. "You are safe," she whispered. "Look at me, sweetheart. Just look at me." Lily's eyes filled, but she nodded. Ethan stood then, slowly, as if pulled up by something heavier than anger. The black folder was not in his hands, but it might as well have been. Every paper Vanessa had given him seemed to live behind his eyes. Claire saw the moment he chose the documents over the years. She saw it before he spoke. "Claire," he said, voice low. "Step away from Lily." A sound moved through the room, soft and stunned. Claire did not move. Lily reached for her, both small hands gripping Claire's wrist. "No," Lily said, louder this time. "She is my mommy." Ethan's face tightened. Maybe the words hurt him. Maybe they humiliated him. Maybe they reminded him that love cannot be controlled like a company vote. Whatever the reason, the final thread snapped. "Stop saying that," he said, and now everyone heard the cold in him. "She is not your mother. She never was." The candles on the cake trembled in the draft from the open terrace doors. Claire felt the room tilt, but she stayed on her knees beside Lily. Vanessa lowered herself back into her chair, satisfied and silent. For a moment, the only sound was Lily crying into Claire's shoulder. Then Claire rose slowly, gently placing Lily behind her as if shielding her from a storm no child should ever have to understand. She did not shout. She did not defend herself with panic. She walked to the gift table, where the small maple box with yellow stars waited beneath pink tissue paper. Every eye followed her. Ethan looked confused for the first time that night. Vanessa's expression flickered. Claire lifted the box with both hands, carried it back to the table, and set it beside the birthday cake. "You want truth," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Then let us start with everything you never bothered to ask." Claire opened the maple box, and the first thing she took out was not a legal paper. It was a crayon drawing. 3 stick figures stood beneath a crooked yellow roof, their hands joined in a line. The smallest figure wore a pink dress. The tallest had dark hair and a square body that Lily always used when drawing Ethan. The third figure wore blue with long yellow hair and a smile too large for the face. Claire held it up, not toward the guests but toward Ethan. "She drew this the first fall I was here," she said. She had not spoken a full sentence in months. That night, she pointed at me and said, "Claire stays." Ethan's eyes dropped to the paper. Something moved across his face, but he forced it back. Claire placed the drawing beside the cake and took out another. Lily at the beach, standing between 2 adults while orange sun filled half the page. Then another. Lily's first day of preschool, with Claire holding her backpack. Then a birthday card covered in fingerprints, each one made with pink paint. "These are not contracts," Claire said. "They are not claims to your money. They are not evidence of some plan Vanessa wants you to imagine. They are the days you were too busy, too frightened, or too proud to understand what your daughter was asking for." Vanessa gave a quiet laugh. "Very touching. But drawings do not change biology." Claire looked at her then. Not angrily. Almost sadly. "No. They do not." The sadness in her voice made the room quieter than anger could have. She reached deeper into the box and pulled out the old envelope from her mother. The paper had yellowed at the edges. Her name was written across the front in faded blue ink. "Claire Bear, keep this safe." Claire's hand trembled for the first time. Lily saw it and stepped closer, pressing against her side. "It is okay, Mommy," she whispered. That tiny sentence almost broke her. Claire opened the envelope and took out the broken hospital bracelet. Half of a newborn identification band, plastic clouded with age, the printed letters still visible under the dining room lights. "Baby Bennett." Ethan stared at it. His expression changed from anger to confusion, then to something sharper. "What is that?" he asked. Claire looked down at the bracelet as if seeing 5 years of pain inside a strip of plastic. "The only thing I was allowed to keep after I was told my baby died." A murmur moved around the table. One of Ethan's aunts covered her mouth. Vanessa's glass paused halfway to the table. Claire continued, her voice low, and even because if she let it rise, it would turn into a sob. "I was 24. I was working at a preschool in Hartford and taking care of my mother after her treatments. I went into labor early. I remember the lights, the hallway, the sound of machines, then waking up alone. They told me my daughter did not survive. They said there was nothing to see, nothing to hold, nothing to question. My mother kept this bracelet because something about that night never made sense to her." Ethan looked at Vanessa, then back at Claire. "Why did you never tell me?" Claire's eyes lifted to his. "Because every time I tried to speak about that loss, I felt like I was stepping back into the room where they took my voice away. And because loving Lily was the first thing in 5 years that made me feel alive instead of broken. Lily looked up, trying to understand only the pieces a child could hold. I was your alive? She asked. Claire knelt immediately and cupped Lily's face. You were my sunshine, she whispered. Every single day. Ethan took one step forward. Claire, those documents Vanessa gave me said you fabricated a connection to Lily. They said you had a history of unstable claims after your pregnancy. Claire stood slowly. Then ask yourself who benefits from making my grief look like a lie. Vanessa set her glass down a little too carefully. This is absurd. A bracelet proves nothing. That is true, Claire said. She turned toward the far end of the room, where an elderly man in a navy suit had been sitting silent since the cake arrived. He was not family. Ethan had invited him because Vanessa had insisted. He was an old Caldwell Memorial donor, who deserved a place at Lily's dinner. Claire had not recognized him until he saw the bracelet and went pale. Now his hand shook against his napkin. Claire looked straight at him. Dr. Whitmore, she said softly, reading the name from the place card in front of him. You worked at Caldwell Memorial 5 years ago, did you not? The room shifted again. Ethan turned. Vanessa's face lost its careful calm. The old doctor closed his eyes, and when he opened them, the shame in them was unmistakable. Yes, he whispered. Claire held up the bracelet. Then please tell my husband why my mother had half of this, and why the other half disappeared from the hospital archive. Vanessa stood suddenly. He does not have to answer that. But Dr. Whitmore looked at Lily, then at Claire, then finally at Ethan. His voice cracked, but the words came clear enough for every guest to hear. I think it is time someone did. Dr. Whitmore stood slowly, and the sound of his chair against the marble floor seemed louder than the storm gathering inside the room. For a moment, he looked older than he had when he arrived, as if 5 years had settled onto his shoulders all at once. Ethan's face had gone colorless. Claire held Lily close with one arm, the broken bracelet still in her other hand, and Vanessa remained standing near her place at the table, perfectly dressed, perfectly still, except for the small movement of her fingers against the stem of her glass. Dr. Whitmore looked at Ethan first. Your family funded the maternity wing at Caldwell Memorial, he said. That gave certain people access most families never had. Private rooms, private records, private favors. Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper. What happened? The doctor swallowed. 5 years ago, Claire Bennett gave birth to a premature baby girl. The baby was fragile, but she was alive. Claire closed her eyes. One tear slipped down her cheek, but she did not make a sound. Lily pressed her face into Claire's dress, sensing the pain even if she could not understand the words. Around the table no one moved. Dr. Whitmore continued. That same night, another infant connected to a Caldwell trust was brought through the private wing under unusual circumstances. There was confusion at first, then pressure to make the paperwork simple. By morning, Claire was told her child had not survived. The baby girl was entered into the Caldwell records under another name. Ethan turned slowly toward Vanessa. Lily. The doctor nodded, shame heavy in his voice. Lily. The word did not fall like a fact. It fell like a life being returned too late. Claire covered her mouth and for one breath the room disappeared. The mansion, the guests, the accusations, the cake, the candles, all of it blurred behind the impossible truth. The child she had rocked through nightmares, fed with star-shaped sandwiches, carried through fevers, and loved without explanation had been hers from the beginning. Not by replacement. Not by fantasy. Not by some broken wish her grief invented. Hers. Lily looked up at Claire, eyes wide and wet. I was your baby? Claire dropped to her knees in front of her, hands trembling as she touched Lily's cheeks. Yes, she whispered. You were always my baby. Lily blinked, then wrapped her arms around Claire's neck with all the strength her small body had. Then I found you, she said. Claire broke then but softly, holding Lily as if the last 5 years were rushing back into her arms at once. Ethan took a step toward them then stopped. He had no right to enter that embrace. Not yet. Not after what he had done. He turned to Dr. Whitmore, his voice rough. Who ordered it? Vanessa laughed once but it came out thin and brittle. This is ridiculous. He is confused. He is an old man trying to clear his conscience with a fairy tale. Dr. Whitmore looked at her, and the shame in his eyes hardened into something closer to courage. Your husband found out before he died, Mrs. Caldwell. Julian requested the archived intake forms. He confronted you because he suspected the child's identity had been altered to protect inheritance arrangements inside the family trust. Vanessa's face changed. It was quick, almost invisible, but everyone saw it because everyone was looking at her now. Do not speak about my husband, she said. Then speak for yourself, Ethan said, and for the first time that night, his coldness was no longer pointed at Claire. Vanessa lifted her chin. I protected this family. Claire stood with Lily in her arms. You stole a child from her mother. Vanessa's eyes flashed. I kept Lily where she belonged. The sentence hung there, cruel in its calmness. Even the relatives who had spent years accepting Vanessa's version of family looked away. Ethan stared at the black folder on the side table, the one a housekeeper had brought in earlier at Vanessa's request. Suddenly every highlighted page, every official stamp, every accusation against Claire looked different. Not like proof. Like a trap. The lab report, he said slowly. The adoption inquiry. The statement about Claire. Dr. Whitmore nodded. Manufactured from partial records and altered summaries. Enough truth to make the lie convincing. Ethan's mouth tightened. He looked at Claire, but she did not look back. Her entire world was in her arms, wearing a pink dress and crying against her shoulder. For the first time in years, the Caldwell dining room did not belong to the wealthiest person in it. It belonged to the truth. Vanessa reached for her purse, but Ethan's aunt, seated beside her, quietly moved it away from the table. No one touched Vanessa. No one needed to. The room itself had turned against her. Ethan took out his phone with a hand that was not as steady as he wanted it to be. Call the family attorney, he told his assistant, who had been standing frozen near the doorway, and contact Caldwell Memorial's board tonight. I want every record preserved. Every archive. Every signature. No one destroys anything. Vanessa stared at him. You would choose her over your own family? Ethan looked at Claire, at Lily, at the broken bracelet beside the birthday cake, and the answer seemed to crush him. I should have chosen the truth before it had to beg me to listen. Claire picked up the maple box and placed the bracelet gently inside, beside Lily's drawings. The candles had burned low now, small pools of wax gathering around the pink holders. Lily lifted her head and whispered, Can I still make my wish? Claire wiped her tears with her thumb. Of course, brave star. But before Lily leaned toward the cake, she looked back at Ethan. Not with anger. Not with forgiveness. Just with the wounded honesty only a child can carry. Daddy, she said. You made Mommy cry on my birthday. Ethan closed his eyes, and that simple sentence hurt more than any accusation in the room. Lily blew out the candles. Smoke curled upward in thin silver lines, and for the first time that night, no one clapped. Because everyone understood that the real wish had already been made 5 years too late, and the only question left was whether Ethan Caldwell could ever become the kind of man worthy of standing inside the family Claire and Lily had found without him. Claire did not leave the mansion that night with anger in her hands. She left with Lily's sleepy head on her shoulder, the maple box tucked under one arm, and a kind of silence Ethan had never heard from her before. It was not the silence of weakness. It was the silence of a woman who had finally learned that love without trust can still feel like a locked door. Ethan stood in the foyer as she walked past him, wanting to say 1,000 things and knowing every one of them would sound too small. I am sorry could not undo a birthday dinner. I did not know could not erase the way he had asked her to step away from her own child. So he only opened the front door for her, the door she had once been too humble to use, and watched as she carried Lily into the waiting car. For the first time, Caldwell Mansion looked enormous and empty behind him. In the weeks that followed, the house changed. Vanessa's framed photographs came down from the family hallway. Her access to the Caldwell Trust was suspended while attorneys reviewed every record connected to Lily's birth, Julian's investigation, and Caldwell Memorial's private maternity wing. The hospital board opened an independent review. Families who had been dismissed, ignored, or silenced over the years were contacted. Ethan signed every document himself, Not because a public relations team told him to, but because he could no longer hide behind polished language and inherited power. Still, none of that brought Claire home. She rented a small white cottage 12 miles away, near Lily's preschool with blue shutters, a porch swing, and a kitchen barely large enough for 2 people to stand in at the same time. Lily loved it immediately. She said it smelled like pancakes and crayons. Claire cried in the bathroom the first night because the house was tiny, the mattress was used, and for the first time in years, no one could take her daughter down a hallway she was not allowed to enter. Ethan did not ask Claire to come back. Not at first. He asked for supervised visits. He arrived on time. He brought no lawyers into the room. He learned Lily's new routine instead of correcting it. He sat at a child-sized table in the preschool art room, while Lily showed him how to draw stars that were allowed to be crooked. The first star he drew looked terrible. Lily laughed so hard she nearly fell out of her chair, and Claire, watching from across the room, looked away before he could see her smile. 3 months after the birthday dinner, Ethan came to the cottage on a Saturday morning carrying a cake box and a folder. He wore jeans and a simple gray sweater, not a suit. His car was parked down the street instead of in the driveway, because Lily had once said the big black car made the neighbors stare. Claire opened the door but did not invite him in right away. Ethan held up the cake box. "Vanilla strawberry," he said. "I made it myself." Claire looked at the uneven frosting sliding down one side. "I can tell." For the first time in months, something gentle passed between them. Ethan did not smile too much. He had learned not to rush toward forgiveness as if it were another deal to close. He handed her the folder. "Your legal rights as Lily's mother have been fully restored. Her birth record is being corrected. The court order is final." Claire opened the folder with careful hands. Her name was there. Lily Bennett Caldwell. Mother. Claire Bennett Caldwell. The words blurred before she finished reading them. Ethan's voice lowered. "Caldwell Memorial is funding restitution for every family affected by record misconduct in that wing. The foundation will be named after Lily, but you will control it if you choose to." "Not me." Claire looked up. "Why?" "Because I used power before I used humility," he said. "And I will spend the rest of my life making sure no other mother has to prove what should never have been stolen from her." Lily ran onto the porch then, wearing rain boots even though the sky was clear. She saw the cake and gasped. "Daddy made that?" Ethan nodded. "I tried." Lily inspected the lopsided frosting with serious eyes. "It is kind of messy." "It is very messy," Claire said. Lily grinned and slipped one hand into Claire's, the other into Ethan's. She looked at both of them, small face bright with a hope neither adult deserved to handle carelessly. "Can we eat it together anyway?" Claire was quiet for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. Not all the way back into the past. Not into easy forgiveness. Just enough to let the morning in. Later, Lily taped a new drawing to the refrigerator. 3 people stood beneath a crooked yellow roof, with a pink cake between them and stars scattered across the sky. Underneath, in careful letters, she had written, "Truth brought me back to Mommy." Ethan looked at the drawing, then at Claire washing plates in the small sink, and understood something his money had never taught him. A family is not protected by a mansion, a name, or a bloodline someone can hide inside a file. A family is protected by the people brave enough to tell the truth, humble enough to repair what they broke, and loving enough to come home slowly, one honest day at a time.